Breland News.
This is probably one of the big stories in mainstream media and independent media this week. Trump marketed a quote-unquote ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. So at least the beginning of the week, there was a lot of praise, I guess.
Yeah.
In mainstream media in terms of more on the Israeli side, of course, of the 20 hostages that were alive were let go. So let's play this clip. I think it's from NBC. Of just one example of what you probably saw within the last 48 hours in terms of this ceasefire deal. And then we'll dial it back and then kind of give the reality of what is happening on the ground that mainstream media is not going to cover. So,
scenes of joy tonight as Israeli hostages are reunited with their families after more than 700 days in captivity. And Palestinian prisoners of war welcome home to massive cheering crowds on the West Bank. It is the first step of a 20-part ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. It is a day that President Trump calls a historic dawn for a new Middle East. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos. President Trump joined other Middle Eastern leaders in Egypt to sign that peace deal. But as Maribel Gonzalez reports, more work still needs to be done.
Emotional reunions as the final 20 hostages held by Hamas were reunited with their families across Israel. People cheered in Tel Aviv celebrating this milestone moment. Under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal, hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees were met with large crowds as they also reunited with their relatives in the West Bank. President Donald Trump declared a dawn of a new Middle East.
This deal, this once-in-a-lifetime deal, nobody's ever seen anything like what's happening today.
On Monday, photos released by the Israeli Prime Minister's office show a freed hostage playing with his children for the first time in 2 years. Families say they never stopped fighting for the release of their loved ones.
Keep sharing your stories to policymakers. Keep telling us what do you think needs to happen and give us ideas on how we can break the deadlock. And we kept doing that. They kept opening the White House for us. And President Trump has done it.
President Trump said that phase 2 of his 20-point ceasefire plan to end the war between Israel and Hamas has already started as he meets with world leaders in Egypt for a summit on Gaza's future and peace in the Middle East.
You look at Gaza, it needs a lot of cleanup.
This is clearly, in my mind, I think in the mind of everyone in this room, probably one of the most important days for world peace in 50 years.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
Here at home, Minnesotans with close ties to the region say they're experiencing a mix of emotions. For those with family in Israel and Palestine, there is a sense of relief that a ceasefire has been reached, but there are questions about the long-term future in the Middle East and whether lasting peace can actually be achieved. Today, we spoke with both the Jewish Community Relations Council and a Palestinian-American business owner.
So happy and relieved, and at the same time, I'm still wearing the yellow ribbon because only 4 bodies were returned. Only 4. And so there are a lot of families that are still waiting.
I mean, I'm happy that we have a ceasefire finally, but very skeptical about what goes next.
The United Nations says that there is major progress in getting humanitarian aid into Gaza, including many tons of food and medical supplies.
All right. So I hate being a Debbie Downer. Actually, no, I don't.
I don't. That's called being a realist.
Right.
You know?
And we've seen this before. So, but of course, it was very, at least in mainstream media, it was very slanted towards the Israeli aspect of this assault. So what we do here, we want to give both sides or multiple sides as possible, but especially on the oppressed side. So we're going to pull this article from, well, ScheerPost pulled it from Mondoweiss. This was written by Qassam Muaddi, who writes, Palestinians free from Israeli prison denied reunion with families as Trump claims a forever peace. So, what happened to it? Here we go. So, Qassam writes,
Why? I hate when it does that. Hold on. I'll fix it. Like, that's a new thing with our, like, remote thing that it does. All right, I'll just pull it up over here. Come on. Do the thing. What slide is it? 38?
It is 38.
Okay. Hold on. We're getting there. 31, 38. Slideshow. Loading. Why is it loading? That weird. There it is.
All right. You need to zoom into that.
Yeah, dude. Try that.
There we go. Thank you. Palestinians in Gaza lived another day with bombs dropping over their heads. Well, that changed within 24 hours. As the first phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas continued into Monday, we saw the release of Israeli captives from Gaza and the release of 1,718 out of 10,000 Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. So notice right there, like, they were happy with the 20 that were alive still, but there's so many Palestinians who are still not freed yet, if they're going to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, again, you're not going to hear that on mainstream media, but I digress. At around 8 a.m. local time, Hamas's armed wing, the Al-Wassam Brigades, handed the first group of 7 Israeli captives to the International Committee of the Red Cross in Gaza without any ceremonies or media exposure. The second group of 13 Israeli captives came an hour later. Meanwhile, the Israeli prison services moved hundreds of Palestinians out of its detention centers. In the decimated city of Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, thousands of Palestinians gathered to receive the hundreds of Palestinians released from Israeli prison, including 25 West Bank Palestinians whom the Israeli Internal Intelligence Service, the Shabak, Shin Bet, recommended to be deported to Gaza.
You can't. I forgot. You can't do the thing. Here you go.
A total of 1,718 Palestinians were released into the Gaza Strip, all of whom were abducted by Israeli forces from within Gaza during the past 2 years. In addition, Israel released 25 Palestinians who had been serving high or life sentences in Israeli prisons, 80 of whom were released in the West Bank, while the rest were deported to Gaza and Egypt. In the town of Beth Tuna, adjacent to Ramallah, dozens of Palestinians gathered in expectation of the released prisoners, who were announced to be released from Israel's Offer detention center just outside of town. Israeli drones flew over the gathering, dropping leaflets that read, "We are watching you everywhere. If you show any support for a terrorist group, you will expose yourself to arrest and punishment." Great. At around 11 a.m., 2 Red Cross marked buses drove through Betuna as Palestinians waved at the released prisoners along the way. In decided smaller numbers than the crowds that had received released prisoners during the previous January through March ceasefire. At the Ramallah Cultural Palace, prisoners' families and crowds of Palestinians gathered to receive the released prisoners. In the crowds, the family of a prisoner, Nurad Abdul Rub, 45, included 2 of his sisters, his cousin, and his paralyzed mother, stood on the sidewalk trying with difficulty to get a glimpse of the Red Cross buses as they arrived. He has been in jail for 19 years with a life sentence, and the last time we visited him was before October 2023, the cousin told Mondoweiss. For more than 2 years, we haven't seen him, and the news we had about him through lawyers was very limited. His father and one of his brothers died during his time in jail, the cousin explained, and his mother suffered a stroke last year that left her unable to move or speak. But we brought her because she has been very anxious to see him. The family left Jenin in the northern West Bank at 6 a.m. to avoid the Israeli army expected road closures, as it did during the previous ceasefire. The Israeli Shabak came at our house yesterday and warned us not to show any sign of celebration, and they told us that Murad will be released here. After all the prisoners left the bus, the family discovered that Murad wasn't among them. Minutes later, they received confirmation from the Red Cross that he had been deported to Egypt. As a cousin shared the news, the elderly mother broke into tears and random screams in her wheelchair. As her daughters helped her into the car, one of them tried to console her. He went to Egypt to study. He'll be back later, she said. The mother moved her hand in the apparent refusal to hear, continuing to weep. Meters away, the older brother of Abdullah Farham, 40, one of the prisoners set to be released, had just learned that he too had been deported. The brother was in Ramallah by 7 a.m. to wait for Abdallah, who had served 18 years of his life sentence in Israeli prison. The family and the entire village are waiting in Kafur Kadum to celebrate his release, he explained. And the Shabbat came yesterday and warned us not to celebrate. Our younger brother and our mother died during his period of imprisonment, he continued, and our father has been waiting for this day for the past 18 years. The feeling is tragic. At least he is free now, thank God, he added. Inside the Cultural Palace building, groups of people gathered around the released prisoners, listening to their stories. One of them, Luthi Rashdan, who had been detained without trial for a year, showed his broken glasses held together with duct tape. I asked the prison services to let me change my glasses for a year, but they ignored me, he told a small crowd. On the other side of the hall, Alam al-Rai, who had been in prison serving a life sentence since 2006, struggled to speak, his voice low and barely audible. His short white hair and his features gave the impression that he was in his 60s. He is only 47. At the end of the prisoner exchange, between 9,000 and 10,000 Palestinians will remain behind bars, including around 5,000 Palestinians who are being held without charge or trial and without clear release dates under Israeli systems of administrative detention. Palestinian political leaders held in Israeli prison were excluded from Monday's swap after a protracted and drawn-out negotiations process and Israeli interventions. The most notable among the prisoners are popular Fatah leader Moran Bahuthi and PFLP Secretary General Ahmad Sadat, both of whom had been unable to participate in Palestinian politics due to their imprisonment. Both leaders are known for their widespread popular support and stances in favor of Palestinian national unity. The prisoner exchange took place as U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in Tel Aviv, where he was received by Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife at the airport. Trump headed to occupied Jerusalem to deliver a speech at the Israeli Knesset ahead of his flight to Egypt, where he's expected to preside over a conference with some 20 state leaders to officially announce his peace plan to definitely end the Israeli war on Gaza. In his speech, Trump said it was a historic dawn of a new Middle East and the beginning of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel. Trump praised Netanyahu, who he called hard to deal with. The U.S. president also lauded Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, whom he had said was called in to draft a plan for the end of the war, all with the wave of applause by the Knesset members. Trump also thanked the Arab and Muslim countries that participated in his plan for the end of the war, which did not receive any applause from the Knesset. During Trump's speech, Palestinian Knesset member Ayman Odeh, and left-wing anti-Zionist Knesset member Ophir Kassif raised signs calling for the recognition of Palestine as a state and were forcibly removed from the hall. Trump commented on their removal, saying that was very efficient.
Nope, sorry.
The U.S. president also said that Israel had won what could be won by force of arms, and it should translate victories on the battlefield into peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. He added that the focus of Palestinians in Gaza should be on restoring the fundamentals of stability, safety, dignity, and economic development. Trump also touched on the issue of Iran, asserted that the Iranians want a deal, and added that we're going to see if we can do something. Toward the end of his speech, Trump said that he wished Israel's president, Isaac Sarat, would pardon Netanyahu for his charges of fraud and bribery. Trump ended his visit to Israel after 4 hours, considered one of the shortest U.S. president visits to Israel. At Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump presided over the signing ceremony of the Gaza ceasefire deal, along with the leaders of the mediating countries, Egypt and Qatar. At the moment the deal was signed, Trump commented, "It took 3,000 years to get to this point."
Ow. We'll do this. And this.
What is this?
I just fixed it so that we can have cameras on.
Okay.
Why did it go all the way to the bottom? There it is. You're right here.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi thanked Trump for his efforts to end the war, noting that real leadership is not in waging wars, but in the capacity to end them. Al-Sisi added that the signed deal should open the pathway for a two-state solution, and the Palestinians, like all people who have their own state, are no exception. The PA was represented by Mahmoud Abbas, the PA president, who had not received an invitation to join the summit until Sunday. Although present at the ceremony, the PA is not a signatory to the deal, and its potential role in governing the Gaza Strip after the war remains uncertain. So that should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Israel and Hamas still have to negotiate terms for the definite end to the war based on Trump's plan. This includes the body meant to rule over the Strip, which Hamas and Palestinian factions insist must be an independent Palestinian body of technocrats.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means specifically, and it seems weird and I don't think they would actually select that. Technocrats?
No.
No. I wonder if that got lost in translation or something, or who knows. Maybe. But sounds weird to me every time I've heard it.
In contrast, Trump's plan would include a board of peace headed by Trump himself that would be in charge of running Gaza. Okay. Another point to be negotiated is the disarmament of Hamas and other Palestinian resistance factions. The Palestinian factions of a Palestinian state, thank you, whilst Trump's plan would see the resistance movement of disarmament and makes no mention of Palestinian statehood. So basically it's all bullshit, and even with it, as we are reading this, Israel already broke their ceasefire. Again, it's not going to be reported on in mainstream media. So actually, if you can go to the slide after the article.
Yeah. You also had one from Khaleesi in here, right?
Yes.
This one right here.
That I just added. So Khaleesi tweeted, major news, Israel is not signatory to Middle East peace agreement. So meaning they didn't sign the contract or whatever. So everyone else did. So Trump Egypt, Qatar, Turkey.
Yeah, all the standards.
But no Israel. But no Israel. So
who knows?
So actually go back to the tweet.
Yep. Up here.
Yep. How is it that Israel has not signed Trump's Middle East peace plan? And I have another tweet after that. So next slide. So this is from at K_me_82. This is not a peace treaty. It's a regional alignment statement led by authoritarian or pragmatic regimes who have historically traded Palestinian rights for geopolitical favors. And then there is Trump, the ambassador of the genocide, dressing cruelty in the language of peace. This is so disgusting. Totally agree.
Did that. And then I brought this.
So you brought this. You did. So can you explain this?
If I can remember this dude's name. Hold on. I will tell you. Because Sam Husseini pulled it. If I can find his website. Where's it at? I'll just go to his Twitter. I just want to get the name of this guy. I just went to Husseini.org. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Because I do believe that is his thing. 2, 1. Come on, internet, you can do it. Where's it at? Where is it at? Oh, there it is. Qassam Kanafani, right?
Okay.
So is this dude's name pretty famous when it regards to Palestinian independence in general, right? People should know that name, and I should have remembered it. But he was interviewed long time ago about peace talks, right? And why won't your organization engage in peace talks with the Israelis? Well, he's going to tell you.
Why won't your organization engage in peace talks with the Israelis?
You don't mean exactly peace talks. You mean capitulation, surrendering.
Why not just talk?
Talk to whom?
Talk to the Israeli leaders.
That's kind of conversation between the sword and the neck, you mean?
Well, if there were no swords and no guns in the room, you could still talk.
No, I had never seen any talk between a colonialist case and a national liberation movement.
But despite this, why not talk?
Talk about what?
Talk about the possibility of not fighting.
Not fighting for what?
Not fighting at all, no matter what for.
Yeah, and people usually fight for something and they stop fighting for something. So you can't tell me even why should we speak about what?
Well, stop fighting.
For what? Or talk about stop fighting, why?
Talk to stop fighting, to stop the death and the misery, the destruction, the pain.
The misery and the destruction and the pain and the death of whom?
Of Palestinians, of Israelis, of Arabs.
Of the Palestinian people who are uprooted, thrown in the camps, living in starvation, killed for 20 years, and forbidden to use even the name Palestinians.
They're better that way than dead, though.
Maybe to you, but to us, it's not. To us, to liberate our country, to have dignity, to have respect, to have our mere human rights, is something as essential as life itself.
So, I felt it very fitting. I mean, they've been dealing with this shit for far too long now. And I love how it's always met with like two-state, both sides nonsense every fucking time. Like, we could just not. That'd be great. But Just silly at this point.
So I have one more slide.
Yeah.
And this segment. So this is my former roommate. He posted this on his Instagram. Not sure, I forgot where it's from. But this will kind of summarize the segment, I think, very well. Much will be said in the news this week of the 20 Israeli hostages who returned to their families. You will know their names and faces and families and stories. I hope you can find space in your heart for the survivors of the 1.9 million displaced Palestinians who are also returning home this week to piles of rubble and dust. People have also have names and families and stories, none of which will get nearly the coverage the hostages do.
Yep.
Hostages do, sorry. So, thinking about that in light of the 20 that are alive at least, that will probably get a lot of play, probably a lot of press over the next few weeks. And we will not even think about the thousands of lives that are now dust, that will not be named, that Palestinians will have no closure as to what happened to their families. Or in this case, some families, even if they were released, were deported. So again, you're not going to hear that in mainstream media. So keep that in mind when you hear these 20 Israelis who, yeah, we can be happy that they were released, but there's so many more Palestinians whose names we'll never know. And being forgotten about. And I think, and I saw someone mention this on social media, I think earlier tonight as I was working out, I think especially in light of the first segment where, Israel is looking to bring in Christian churches to kind of bring about the Hasbara, social media will be heavily suppressed in terms of anything Palestinian. So I think even for us, especially given, I think we definitely should consider we haven't saving all of our segments, especially regarding Israel, because YouTube will definitely do what it can to crack down on that. Especially now with TikTok possibly being bought by Zionists, they will do everything now to kind of clean up their act, to kind of make this go away and kind of whitewash this assault for everything that's worth. So I think moving forward, we definitely should be more mindful of that, not just us, but independent media in general, of what Israel might be planning to do and trying to clean up this image, which, again, don't think it's going to work, but any sort of resistance is going to be met with consequence. So I think having to kind of watch out for that moving.
Yeah.
And I say that goes along with our audience as well, who at least right now are watching this. And if you are definitely pro-Palestine, but even on social media, I suggest to be careful of how you. I don't even want to say that because that's censoring, but just be mindful as you post, of what could potentially get you, as you saw with me that I shared last week about my censorship online. So you guys should be careful of that as well. But talking about this story and other stories like this is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us financially in order to help us keep the lights on and kind of start thinking in terms of how to pay off our bills for the upcoming year, you can scan the QR code or go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're in the chat right now live, you can type in ! donate and the Ko-fi link will come up and you can click it and give as much as you want, as much as you can. Anything as low as $1 will be extremely great for us, and we will appreciate you guys for that. But we don't want to put my people out in terms of paying for us. So if you want to support us, please like and subscribe, and please share our clips or this stream to help fight the suppression, and make sure to leave a comment on YouTube, either in the chat or in the comment section if you're watching this as a clip. And let us know what you think in terms of the reality that certain Palestinians while they might have been released, might have been deported, or even with the idea of how, even on mainstream media, like the emphasis has been on the 20 Israeli hostages that were released, and none of the thousands of Palestinians who are still jailed, some who are being deported, and most we would never know their names given that they're now dust on the Gaza Strip right now. So let us know what you think in terms of the bias mainstream media has for Israel in terms of the hostages versus the millions of Palestinians who may never have that kind of peace and closure. Let us know what you think about that. And thank you guys for watching.